The hosts and guests on Everything's Messy podcast are not licensed healthcare professionals. The discussions in our episodes are not personalized medical advice. Always consult a qualified healthcare provider for medical guidance. Never delay seeking professional medical advice or emergency assistance because of our podcast. We encourage consulting with a healthcare professional before making any significant health changes. By listening to our podcast, you agree to the disclaimer. Thank you for listening to Everything's Messy podcast. Hey, welcome to Everything's Messy podcast, where we celebrate the beautiful but messy life experiences that most, if not all, people go through. Get ready to embark on an exciting journey through the raw and unfiltered stories of everyday people. Here, we dive into messy realities of life, from making messy mistakes to triumphs and everything in between. Are you sensing a theme? That's right, it's messy. But this just isn't about the mess. It's about finding strength and resilience in the midst of it all. We'll explore how health, fitness, and wellness play a crucial role in navigating life's twists and very messy turns. And we'll challenge conventional systems, because sometimes the most unconventional paths lead to the greatest discoveries. Join us as we embrace the messy, beautiful, and endlessly fascinating stories. Each episode is a testament to the power of our messy journeys and the beauty that emerges from the mess. So grab your favorite beverage, coffee, sparkling water, whatever it may be, and prepare to be inspired. Are you ready? Let's get messy. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Everything's Messy podcast. This is the 2-year mark. Wow, I am just blown away that we are going into season 3. And today I think I just want to wrap up season 2 in a pretty little bow and send it off with a big kiss and a hug and just jump into season 3 coming up and what we're going to be doing. I can't believe it's been 2 years. I had a simple goal. And that was not only to teach people how to embrace the mess, that it's everywhere, it's not going anywhere, because life is messy, right? I know it probably sounds repetitive, redundant, like stop saying it, but it is. And I feel like we have to embrace it. And what a ride it's been, right? Oh my goodness. You know, when I launched this podcast, it first started as, just a kind of like a journal of what was happening with me. I was coming freshly off of having suffered my heart attack and feeling lost in the medical system and feeling like there were no answers. And it was just a very dark period. I felt hopeless, helpless. I felt alone and lost. And the conventional stuff didn't work. It just didn't work. And I just needed a place to vent that, to get that out, and to just, see out there into the, universe. Was I the only one feeling this way? It turns out I wasn't. And, from there, I feel like I kind of graduated into creating the space for real conversation and not fake, making it authentic. And I think the word authentic gets thrown around these days and it's overused. But my goal was to truly have no filters, put everything out there. This is what I'm going through, and see if it would be reciprocated by other people. And it was. Everybody that's been on this show has had some sort of mess that has touched their life. But what they've been able to do with that mess, that is where the power is. That is where the hope comes from. Because some of them have been incredibly sad. Some of them have been incredibly heartbreaking. But when we get to that moment where they kind of flip over the card and we get to see what transferred, what transpired, what they did with that mess they were given, that's the beauty that I love. That's the messy magic that I love to talk about and hear. Because life's always going to be crazy, right? It's always going to be stressful. And choosing to use that to elevate us and give us that power back and not being a victim and not stuck, that is what I wanted for this show. So again, I started with sort of a journal of what's happening to me, transformed it into wanting to create that space where we could have those real conversations. And we've had some crazy conversations. And, I wanted to tackle the big topics, not just heart disease, going through a heart attack, type 1 diabetes. I wanted to embrace every mess because somehow we're all connected with that. We've had topics with autoimmune disease, the mom guilt, health, stress. I mean, there's been so much that we've talked about. And if you're been listening with me for 2 years, or if you have just started and you've just found me, I hope that you can kind of see the transformation. If you go way back to the first couple of episodes, it was like, ooh, I don't think she knew what she was doing. You're right, I didn't. And I'm not even going to play that I did. I absolutely had no idea what I was doing. But I wasn't going to quit because somewhere this was calling to me to get out whatever not only was in my heart, but to have other people have a space where they could get out of their hearts what was going on and what they did with it. That is where the real big transformation came from. And then when I realized the connection, even if it was a different disease that I had never heard of, or a stress hack, or all of these things that we learn and we're trying to educate ourselves about, the connection was that we are connected by mess. What we choose to do with that mess is the kicker, and bringing people together to teach other people. I hope there was that one person. I mean, I'm hoping more than one person, but I'm hoping there was one person out there who felt seen, who felt heard, who was like, that is me. And they were able to get more information and move out of that space and be like, okay, now I'm empowered. What can I do with this? And I'm hoping that happened. I really am. A few of you have reached out to me and have told me as much. I hope it's on a little bigger scale, just because I am trying to get more information out there. And I think we do need to be taking this seriously because it affects all of us, right? And when I look back and I feel like, what was my point? My point was, I've got to do something. I can't sit here and be a victim of my own circumstances. Okay, it happened. It sucked. I mean, it really sucked bad. It was a huge wake-up call for me, but I couldn't have been the only one going through that. And it turns out, like I said, I wasn't. I let's see. I'm not too emotional, but I am. When I look back at all these things, it brings me so much joy. Again, actually going through the stuff, yeah, it sucked. But the joy comes from being able to talk with other people about what was happening with them and connecting. I've said before, COVID really messed us up. It messed us up in so many ways. One of the ways it messed us up is actually connecting to people. And that part where we crave that deeper conversation. I don't know about you, and I think I've talked about this before. I'm not good with pleasantry, conversation, lighthearted. I mean, I'll do it and it's fine, but I want to connect with you. I want to get deep. I want to be able to get to know you. And, that takes some time to develop, and I understand that. And so you have to get through the pleasantries. But that's why I like to say, okay, let's jump into the mess, because I want to know the deeper parts that are going on. And it's a lot. I've shared with you guys before, I'm an empath, so I am feeling all of these feelings. But that also, as much as it drains me, it also brings me comfort and sort of empowers and gives me energy, because I know that I'm connected with all of you. And that to me is so great. I love that. So I just, as we're embarking on season 3, I just feel like wrapping up season 2. It wasn't season 1 where it was my rookie season, and what's going on season 2 is, okay, I kind of know what I'm doing. And now season 3, I'm like, we are going strong. And I hope, like I said, the continued guests that I'm having on will continue to inspire and teach and educate us. Because that's also a big part of this. I never considered myself somebody who would educate or bring education. But I feel like that's where we can empower. I'm always talking about advocating for yourself. Well, the only way you can advocate for yourself is if you know what you're looking for, if you have the education to go with it. It's intimidating when we talk to healthcare professionals and they, tell me what's going on. And you're like, well, I know something's wrong, but I don't exactly know what it is. And that just leads you down a rabbit hole of different diagnostic testing and blood work and all this stuff. And it's like, wouldn't you love to have more information to go here? This is, and it's not about you being the Google doctor or WebMD. It's really getting to know yourself and know what you should feel like and what you don't feel like. And that's empowering. And that's becoming your own self advocate. And I cannot preach that enough. So I hope that we can continue to move forward in that. I hope I can bring you great topics. I touched last week a little bit on some new wellness trends that were happening. The quadrobics word that I couldn't say, where people are getting down on all fours and doing like a bear crawl and things like that. Please know that I wasn't making fun of that. I am happy to see anybody out there and moving in any way that they can be. I think where I was coming from was more, we have to be careful in the wellness industry because they're going to throw everything they can at us to be in that multi-billion-dollar world. And we as consumers and, practitioners and things that we are trying to implement as exercise routine, we need to be a little bit smarter of what our body can do, what we should be doing starting out, and what is actually beneficial. Again, I've said this many, many times, starting to put one foot in front of the other is the best thing that you can do for yourself. And then when you can get a routine going, setting a goal of how many steps you want to get per day, that's, again, where the magic happens. So, and, along the way, you're going to have mess, and that's just what it is. A couple guests that I do want to just mention, because I think there was a lot of meat there, and you can go back and listen if you want. But recently I had on Dr. Diana Driscoll. She shared her journey about POTS. I think there's a lot more people who have these symptoms. I'm not saying they have POTS, but they might have these symptoms, and she really can shed a lot of light on that. Linda Torgerson, helping women over 50, reclaim their health. I think at any age, you want to be able to reclaim your health and you want to be strong about it. I feel like when we are not in the driver's seat, we are not in control. And yes, I know I have my control issues, but we need to be the ones powering ourselves to continue forward, whatever that looks like. So whatever exercise program that speaks to you, you got to get on it. The best thing, though, is the consistency. And again, start where you're at. Some others, Cheryl I love, here this woman in her 60s is, a black belt and just incredible ninja things that she can do. And her journey itself, incredible. We had, the father that I spoke to whose child had pediatric cancer, and the heartbreaking story of having to hear that, but then hearing how not only him and his wife, but his son turned that into giving joy to other people because he didn't want to go to his treatments in a wheelchair. He wanted to go, and he couldn't walk, so they had to transport him. They made this wagon, and, this wagon turned into a beacon of hope for other families going through it, and they would deliver these wagons to other people. And then the son was able to go into remission. And it's just such a heartbreaking story, but they gave back. They did something good with it. And all of the others that have been on this show, the fitness experts, the autoimmune experts, the nutrition experts, they all bring something along with their own mess. And that's why I want to be able to show you can do this. You can do this. Whatever it looks like for you, just start. So, I had a lot of solo episodes, which was a little new for me. I tried to jam pack my first season with almost a guest every solo or show, but I couldn't do that. So I embraced solo episodes. I still trip over my words, although I feel like I do that anyway. Thank you, Hashimoto's. If you have a low thyroid problem, you know what I'm talking about. We just trip over our words. It's just something that the brain isn't connecting fast to the mouth. So it is what it is. My own solo stories though, where I've covered my heart attack journey, the things that I have learned, the conventional medicine that I have learned did not work for me. I I am blown away all of these guidelines and things that are coming out where they're changing, and if you really read between the lines, they change the numbers so they can then tell you you're in the bad range, so then they can prescribe you that pill, and I just think there has to be a better way, and there is. You have to unfortunately spend the time to figure it out, and what's that saying that we say a lot? If you don't make time for your health now, you better make time for your sickness later. And that applies to anything, not only in time, but financially. People are like, oh, it's too expensive to eat healthy. It's too expensive to go to the gym. I don't have time. Well, later on, then you better make sure that you have money for hospital visits and treatments and things that you might need on top of, still having to probably eat a better diet if you haven't changed all that. So you might as well start now. Might as well start now. I sent my dad this thing on X last week. Was this man, he's like 93 years old now, and he started doing the row machine when he was in his 70s. And his actual age, his mitochondria health, he's in his 40s, but he didn't start until he was in his 70s. So you can start at any time, anytime. And that's the beauty of it. Our bodies are forgiving. Our bodies are not trying to keep score. They're trying to ask you to give it exactly what it needs. And when you start to do that, it's transformative, and you get addicted kind of feeling so good, you don't want to go back. Now, again, we talk about enjoying the party, enjoying the cake, yes, you can do all that, provided you're doing most of the things 80% of the time. And that's where that sweet spot is at. I don't want you to miss out on life. I don't want you to miss out on celebrations. And I certainly don't want you to miss out on enjoying good food with your family or friends. That's how we connect. But we have to then continue the consistency, continue that self-discipline, continue the harmony within our bodies so we can get back to work and do what we need. And I had somebody reach out, and it was a compliment, but it was sort of not. It was like, I appreciate all your information, but you seem obsessed about it. And I will be completely honest. In the beginning, I was very obsessed with it, partly because I was in sort of this shock that I had been lied to for so long about the things that I should be doing. And I think that dismay, that just complete, what is why is it so contrasted? Why is it so different than what I've been told? I became obsessed with it. I became obsessed with it because it wasn't mainstream. I think it's starting to turn that way, but it's also, I trusted people who go to school for 12, 14 years, are these specialists in what they're supposed to be, and they weren't really there to get me well, right? They are there to treat you when you're sick. They're not really there to get you well. And that, just realizing that, was so eye-opening for me. And again, there are great doctors out there, and there are great doctors who truly care. They really do. But a lot of the doctors, they're overworked. They see so many patients. They, are fighting with their own insurance to make sure that they get paid, and all these things. It's taking away from what is actually needed. So then you usher in the wellness world where you have your health coaches and life coaches and nutrition coaches and all this kind of stuff. And they are important. However, there's a lot of, I'm just going to say, there's lots of information, and a lot of it isn't aligned. So you have to make sure, again, that's how you should put in the time for yourself and get to know you, get to know what you like, what you don't like, what you feel, what you can commit to, what is comfortable, these extreme diets that people go on. And I've been told that carnivore was extreme, and I will say, The amount of changes that I had on carnivore, though, to me was worth the extreme. And I've since come whole food based, still mostly carnivore, but, berries, zucchini, different things like that I've added back into my diet. I I think the biggest part was learning what my body needed, and I encourage you, again, I've said before, I've talked to many vegans who say, "Oh my gosh, vegan is the best thing that ever happened to me." If that's what your experience was, then that's great. Then you found what works for you. That was not my experience at all. It made me sicker, much more sicker. And I thought, I was so mad because I was doing everything the doctors were telling me and I wasn't getting any better. And I just knew this couldn't be it. This could not be it. And so again, going on this journey, bringing you guys or dragging you along with me is to show we have to be our own vehicles of information. We have to. The tricky part is going through that information and discerning what aligns and what doesn't. And I've been wrong. I haven't always brought I originally thought it was good, but then I've had to go back and say, I've changed my mind on this. This isn't the greatest. And I think if we can remain honest, if we can have these open conversations, that's what the goal is here. I I feel like you all have become friends and families and conversationalists, and I hope, you've had conversations where, "Oh, I heard this thing and, yeah, she's crazy and we laugh at her, but this is what she said." And then another person takes that and bites into it and then they run with it and then it keeps going. So we continue to be educated and informed and ask questions. Ask the hard questions that you wouldn't normally ask because you're just taking the doctor's word at face value. Ask them, right? We've said before, doctors are specialists in the systems of the body. They don't know how to put the whole picture together. They don't really look at what this system is doing, if it's doing this and, how it's connected. That's what we need to be doing. And I long for the day where we can take that conventional medicine and take the naturopathic or homeopathic or even just the coaching and meld it together and have a much more broader, beautiful picture. That is the point. And wow, I'm committed to that happening. I really am. I'm committed to making sure that we can bring that to everybody on a huge basis and make changes and really strive to teach what is out there. There's so many people that I speak to that still have that anchor almost around their neck, tied to what their doctor says or tied to what the conventional medicine wisdom says. If you can't let that go, I would encourage that you stop just taking it at face value. Ask yourself. Ask yourself, why would they rather prescribe a pill for you than a wellness remedy? Sunlight, sleep, stress technique, good food. Those are, different things like red light therapy. I was going to talk about that. I went to my first red light therapy session a couple weeks ago, and it's really nice, really great experience. What my takeaway was, not only the benefits of the red light, but because I had to kind of get into this contraption and sort of lay on this bed and, they put blankets on you and where there's like 3 separate machines. One goes over your stomach, then they wrap your legs, then your arms. What I found the most interesting, again, aside from the benefits, was I had to lay still with my eyes closed for 20 minutes. No phone, no distractions, that was, and still be awake. Like I wasn't asleep, but it was just complete quiet and not like 20 minutes. That's a long time for me. When I try to take my stress breaks, they're probably 5 minutes. 20 minutes was so long, but I felt so incredible afterwards. And again, I'm sure a lot of it had to do with the red light, but just being still and quiet for 20 minutes. My body at first was freaking out. Like, what? Oh my gosh, what do we have to do? We have to do this. We have to do this, like all these different things. And it finally got to a point where I was like, okay, I can calm down. I can breathe. It's okay. But that was like the best takeaway for me. Um, and I understand a lot of people, can't do that. Although I will say this was relatively inexpensive, and it was one of those first appointment things. So there was also another discount. They exist. They do have codes and different things. So if you're looking into that, see if you can find something like that to at least go try it one time. I know a lot of people have the red light stuff at home. That is a bit of more expensive. I know when I was still at the gym before I did my home gym, the gym had part of your membership had red light therapy. So there are places out there that are offering this. If you're interested, I do encourage you to try it and, do your own research and look at the benefits and if it would be beneficial to you. So I think, like I said, just the takeaway of just being laying still for 20 minutes. Wow, that was huge. Okay, so we've talked about my original, journey, my original plan, my heart and soul of this project, the things that I have that I'm so grateful for in you as a listener, in you as a supporter. I'm just completely grateful for the time that I've been able to have behind this mic. And I can't wait to keep doing it. I'm so excited. Like I said, these last 2 years have taught me that messy is universal. Doesn't matter where you're from. I mean, I've had guests from Australia. All over the place. It is universal. It is not just a certain demographic or a certain, it's all of us. It is all of us. And we all have those moments where we feel out of control. And those are the scariest. But that's where the growth happens. That's where we grow. That's where we come out of it. And I will say, hosting the podcast, it has stretched me. It has taught me a lot of things about myself. I have shared a lot about myself that I didn't really expect to do. Being vulnerable and being the honesty. I mean, it's easy to sit up here and talk a big game, but I've had to come to you sort of with my hat in hand and say, I messed up. I didn't do it right. I didn't know I was doing it wrong, but I didn't do it right. And I had to fix it. And I sort of did that in front of you. The episode I did where I'm crying in the gym, all that stuff that released. And yes, it was, terrible that I started to cry and have this meltdown at the gym. But at the same time, I wasn't embarrassed about it. It had to happen. I'm sure the other people didn't really appreciate it. I'm sure they had secondhand embarrassment. But for me, that had to happen. And that is the most real that I can be with you. There, that when I pushed through that wall and on the other side, and I was so mad at myself. I remember being so mad at myself that I couldn't do more. And sometimes I still feel that way. Minus the breakdown. But when I realized that my mind and my heart wanted to do more and my body couldn't, it was like, I got to help my body. I got to get it to the point where all three are working together. All three are making sure that we can move forward. And that was a turning point for me. And learning to be a little kinder to myself, not being so angry with myself, giving myself a little bit of grace, learning about boundaries, learning about how my kids are there and doing the wellness with them. And them respecting when I do need time and that it's okay. Letting go of that mom guilt, which is still a demon I struggle with, but it's much better than it was. I've unraveled all of that in front of all of you. And we've laughed, or you've laughed at me. I've laughed at myself. I've cried. I think if there's anything that I can truly say is being vulnerable, sharing my own struggles, trying to find other type 1 diabetics. It's so interesting to me. there's so much support now. When I was 15 and I was diagnosed, this didn't happen. There's so much support now. But a lot of the support still is directed towards young, kids, juveniles, maybe even teenagers. They have all these support groups. And then I found that there's a group for older type 1 diabetics that are like 65 and older, and they have a special group. But we sort of get lost for type 1 diabetes. You don't grow out of it. It doesn't go away. They used to call it juvenile diabetes. Now it's just called type 1. But you're diagnosed in your juvenile days. But when you're 35, 40, 45, it doesn't go away. So we need more support in those ages, I feel, because that's when it is raining chaos. Kids, family, heart, into the job, buying houses, all of these things. I'm going to say this really quick too. My stepmom and my brother, big shout out to them. They have become sort of the experts in our family of buying crypto and things like that. And I am just this tiny little baby that's trying to step into that. And I will say I'm overwhelmed and I'm scared. And I don't want to say I'm scared, but I'm just unsure of this territory because I don't know anything about it. And they have the knowledge. They have a way forward. They have things that you should look for and do. And they should have a podcast. They should be talking about it. But I compare that to those of us just starting out in our wellness journey. I was a little seedling. I didn't know anything, and I made myself learn what I needed to learn. Fortunately for me, with this, crypto and this technology and, how to do it and the cold wallet, this and all of that, I don't have to learn so much of it, although for my own sake, I probably should. But it's nice that I can defer to them to sort of help me along with that journey. Whereas now with wellness, I hope you guys can defer at least to know where you should start, at least to know where you should go and get the information that you need. And I think that's a beautiful thing. And if we all keep helping each other, if we all keep doing it, that's, again, the connection. That's the listening. That's the, I feel seen. I feel heard. I feel connected. And that is the most important thing that I think we can do for everybody, right? I don't want to be an expert in everything. And I don't think you want to be an expert in everything. But whatever you are an expert in, you should take that and give it to someone else so then they can go and do their own stuff. And that's really what I'm trying to do here. So, all right, heading into season 3, we've got new guests lined up. Obviously more solo episodes, getting more into the crux of course, the health, mindset, and some really fun projects. I'm not ready to divulge that yet. And a huge announcement that will probably come to fruition in September, which I'm going to just tease it a little bit, but I'm not ready to say, but it's huge, at least for me. And I'm really excited about it. And just moving forward, today, I don't know where you're at in the world. Here in Southern California, it has been hot the last 3 days. 2 days ago was 118. Yesterday, we had a little reprieve. It was only like 98, and we had like a morning thunderstorm, which never happens, but it just made everything steamy. Today, we're back up to 106. So make sure wherever you're at, it's still summer for most of us. Drink your water. And what I always say, make sure you're adding your electrolytes. I have my new fancy cup that I'm drinking out of, and I love it so much. Those of you who can't see it, go to the YouTube channel because I want you to be able to see all the things. Oh, and I did have somebody mention, they sent me a message about where did I get my leather cuff that I wear. It's actually from my husband, his company, tateleather.com. You can go there and order, anything you can think of you want in leather, he can do. So big shout out to him. It was really fun to get a compliment on it because I love my leather cuff so much. So again, YouTube, if you want to see what's going on. I'm everywhere else, Spotify, Apple, iHeart, all the good things. But if you do happen to go over YouTube, maybe hit subscribe and like and all the good things. And send me a comment, send me an email. I love getting to know my listeners. I love getting to have conversations. If you've got something really great and you want to be brave, maybe you'll be the next guest. Anyway, I love to talk to all of you. And here's to more messy conversations, getting stronger every day, and learning how to weather the storm when it comes and getting power out of that storm, because everything is messy. Absolutely. But you will find your strength through the mess. I promise you that. So thank you to everyone. Thank you for a wonderful 2 years, on to 3 years, and see you later. Thanks for listening to Everything's Messy podcast. Whew, if you made it this far, give yourself a gold star or at least a nap. Honestly, if you showed up today and you were listening, you've already crushed it. I'm so grateful for you listening. If anything hit home, share it, tag me, write it on a sticky note. I don't care. Just don't keep all of this messy goodness to yourself. You can find me on Instagram at Everything's Messy Wellness or over at my website, everythingsmessywellness.com, where I've got resources, coaching, and probably a new rant about blood sugar or something that's just nonsense. It's all waiting for you. Check out my YouTube channel. I've got all of my podcast episodes up there. And I'm on X at Everything's Mess. Or if you just want to send me an email, Sarah at everythingsmessywellness.com. Look, until next time, hydrate, take no crap, and as always, keep it messy.